Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. So today I'm kind of going back. I'm going to go back and do somewhat mini Monday. We're going to do some mini landscapes. They're not super tiny, but they're small. And they're perfect. They're good for cards. They're just good for practicing. This is perfect for any skill level. We're practicing wet on wet, wet on dry, scraping paint with credit cards, splattering paint, getting in layers, the background layers, all that good stuff. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. Tell me if you're struggling with landscapes, and hopefully this helps you because I talk about composition in this particular tutorial a lot too. Please hit the bell notification button to know my tutorials are up, and please subscribe if you haven't subscribed because, you might want to know when they're up, right? Also, check out my Patreon. I have ad-free videos, traceables, exclusive tutorials on Thursdays, and a live stream in the top tier. It's just a place people go and support my channel, which I super appreciate. I also added a Facebook group where people can share their paintings and chit chat. And we have weekly challenges and monthly giveaways. Yep, we have giveaways over there. So you can check it out. You can find the link for Patreon in my description and you can go check it out. You can join and cancel anytime. So without further ado, let's get painting some simple landscapes. All right, let me go over my supplies. I have two pieces of, this is Fabriano's bright white 100% cotton cold press paper. It's from a block and I just took it off the block and used that because I wanted to use a really nice white paper, but use Arch. Arch is great too. They're both great for wet on wet. And what we're gonna do today. They're 4 by 6 inch pieces and I just taped down one because we do one at a time on a piece of thick cardboard. I'd use magic Scotch tape. It works for me. Some people like to use different types of tape. That's what I've been using. I'll be playing with my Princeton 12 aqua brush and my 8 long round Velvet Touch Series brush. I'm going to be using a little credit card, a sea sponge, and yeah. So really loose landscapes, small to size, are great to start out playing with wet on wet and just doing landscape composition. When you're thinking composition, you're thinking, vertical, horizontal in a landscape, right? Where do you want the viewer to go? There's multiple ideas you can do. So we'll start off with using the horizontal landscape here. And also, when you're thinking about a composition, where do you want the viewer's eye to be? Do you want to have the sky only this much, 1/4 down or 3/4 down or halfway down, or even way down here? That changes everything, when you do composition. For this particular exercise, kind of keeping it halfway. I'm just going to take my little pencil and go just put the line across here, but it's not going to be a real concrete line. And then I'm thinking maybe I'll do a pathway. So I'll just draw a little pathway. And that's it. And then we're going to start to play with wet on wet watercolor techniques, wet on dry also, and just putting in the paint. So the key of me, all the time I talk about greens. I mix my greens because greens right out of the tube kind of not nice, not natural. So I always use my cadmium yellow deep. And when you mix it with certain blues, it changes the color of the green. So here I'll just take a tap of Prussian blue, get a nice medium type green. Take that same green over here in my palette. By the way, everyone always asks me, where is the palette from? The palette is from Sylvan Clayworks. They're not a sponsor of mine. I was gifted this and they sell out immediately whenever they have something like this size in. And they're not cheap. Okay. They're heavy duty. So they're heavy duty and they're not cheap. So just letting you know that. Just what it is. So you see how I have that more yellow in here and it turns into a chartreuse type of green. I'm going to fix my lighting because it seems very, very dull. If I take that same yellow and I mix ultramarine blue deep with it, you get a muted, a sagey kind of green, a little more blue. See that sagey kind of green? Those are nice. But you want a really kind of pretty bluish, yellow, greeny kind of green. I love the peacock. It's like turquoise. Look at that. So I added it to that. Multiples of greens in here. I'm gonna add some more. I got that nice bluish, bright, turquoisey kind of green. You know, and then here's the Prussian blue. Deep green. I always like to add sometimes a little brown, which is burnt umber. You get that really deep green. So you play around with you're mixing the greens. If you have one color to mix with, I say the main 3 colors you should have in your portfolio is like a Prussian blue, a yellow, and magenta, and you can make millions of colors from that. Browns, everything. You can't really make black, so you might want like kind of like a black. And then I always add like white gouache. Oh, I didn't mention that we'll be using some white gouache too. So if you have that, keep that close by. Okay, great. So for the sky, we could do a blue sky. We don't have to do blue sky. Let's play around with the sky a little bit. I have a cobalt color here, which is kind of pretty. I don't talk about this much. I can water this down. Just a simple color. Or you can make a pretty like pink sky, purple sky. And now we're going to do wet on dry. See? Wet paint on dry paper. Just, I kind of lifting this up and holding it on an angle. I don't even know why I'm lifting it up, but I just feel like I need to. And I'm kind of swooping like this. I did this kind of on my small mini lavender field ones, swooping, just leaving some white. You can make it a little brighter by adding some more paint. Just see, now it's wet, and now you're doing wet on wet. See, that area is wet, and you're adding color as wet on wet. Wet on dry, wet on wet, all that good stuff. I'm going back and see the pigment, you can see the thick pigment in there. I'm going to kind of remove some of that. And that is going to be it for our sky. I'm not going to fuss around too much. Done. All right. So we'll start, while this is drying, because we're going to paint over this, we're going to start to play with the field a little bit. And we have those greens we mixed, right? I always like to tell people to start light and then build to dark, because if you start dark, you're just done. So we'll think of this, also think about, I'm making this like design up, but if you want the sun to come from the left to the right, right to the left, think about where you want your greens. So I'm making more bright green. Again, wet on dry, just kind of putting it in here. Here's my pathway, really loose, using the big old 12. Just filling this color in. I have some resistance on my paper because I probably touched it with my fingers and it just doesn't want to go where it's going to go. See, I'm kind of just loosely painting this, and you can see the dry brush because it has a tooth on this paper. And if I didn't have a lot of paint, I'd like that. I'm going to leave it. Don't feel like you have to fill in the whole entire paper when you're doing stuff like this. You don't. You really just don't. See, I'm going to go out here. Boom. And then you can start to add in, playing in some greens while it's wet, right? We mixed up all those greens. Let's try some of those medium greens we have. And you start to play with, see, that's kind of a bright green. Maybe I'll add a little brown to that. Get a little more natural looking. I'm just kind of building up kind of like a dark little field areas. I didn't make a color in the walkway. I think I'll make it like a brown beigey kind of walkway. I'm just tapping, see, I'm lifting up color. Got that sagey green color, dark color here. If I water it down before I put it over there, it'll be nice and light. I'm just tapping upward like this. Little grasses. Just playing for now. Still keeping this area kind of light and bright. The wet on wet just kind of blends nicely. For the little road, I'll grab burnt umber, and I always like to add like a little Paynes gray. I feel like that burnt umber is just so red. Makes more of like a brown with the Paynes gray. Can water that down a lot. And even then, I look at my paper towel to see the color, or whatever towel you have, you can see the color. Maybe I'll add a little more brown umber. There we go. Just water that down. And then start to stick that in your little road. little brown road. Keeping it light and bright because, like I say, once you get it down, it's difficult to get up the darker paint. Just tapping. Does this take much time? Nope. Tip tap 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 tap. And a little more grays. Keeping it light and bright. We talked about. Okay, moving on. Okay. We're going to add a layer, like a background layer of trees, kind of just in the distance. So we'll take our light green. I'm going to mix it with some blues. Over here I have that turquoisey color, blue kind of color. I'm going to water it down. A little cobalt, like a bluish green. Play with your paints. Now, with this brush, we're just gonna do this kind of like outline, like a tree in the background. And just gonna fill it all kind of flat. Just like that. Let me see. So use the point, like the tree, kind of poking up. See little points? I'm removing all this excess. And then the same thing over here, a little bit like that. Just this background tree layer. We're going to keep building from there. We'll go over this again when this is dry. Put little trees here. Just this light colored. See that? Very light. Bluish green. Right? We'll have to wait for this to dry. This is still kind of damp. You can kind of play around with adding in your greens again. I can take this brush or another brush. Just kind of add some greens. It's still damp. Going upward with the grass. Yeah. Tippy tapping. Same thing on this side. This side, I think this side's dried up. I'm gonna go back in. Some greens. Tippy tapping. Maybe grab some water and kind of mush it so it blends nicely like that. You can grab some darker green, kind of tap that. Even a little bit darker. And some in the front. If you want to switch to the number 8 long round, that's better for you to make little grasses. Mine's not cooperating here. And just go like that. Just push the brush upward. You don't need a bunch of ditty grasses, just like simple ones like that. Another trick is we're going to take some just dark paint. The bluish green here. Get some Prussian blue. Now it's really wet. We're going to wait till it's damp. How do we know it's damp? It's like you don't see the shine of it. It's kind of coming through, and we're going to scrape with the credit card. And it's going to create like these nice grasses. See, I'm just kind of pushing the paint around here, going like this. And this is still damp. Watch what happens if it's really, really wet. If you scrape, you don't see the white. You don't want that. You want to wait till it's damp. So when it's damp, it will do the scrape for you. Here it's a little damper. Maybe you can see it. No, not that way either. We'll play around with that. I'm going to add some grasses here. Dark color. Keeping this really nice and bright back here. Try not to touch it too much. I'm going to add some trees in a minute. I'll just keep tapping in a little bit darker color here. So this is kind of damp, not wet. And I'll show you with the grass. I'm gonna put some over on the road. See, now it's soaking in the paper. Still not there, but you can do a scrape. Let's try this one. Nope. You'll know when you can do test ones and see if they come in and they scrape out the white. Also, let's take our white gouache. Or you could use salt. You just sprinkle a little salt here and it will remove the paint a little bit and you'll leave like white areas for like daisies. So I'm just going to take some gouache with my Princeton 8 long round. I've got a little bit of gouache. You don't want to have it really loose too much. And I'm going to just tap in those wet areas. So it looks like daisies. If it's a little bit wet, it will spread out. It'll be kind of cool. Oop. Too wet, it's going to spread out too much. Just want a little bit. See, I'm just tippy tapping. It's doing its thing. Now we're going to test it one more time. The scraping. There we go. See? You scrape. You can have a smaller tool, but you just scrapes and you get it comes. If it's too wet still, it's going to fold back in the color. See? And you get your grasses. Kind of fun. Get those little grasses. Just like that. Okay, so this part is dry. We're going to play around with one more, like going in again with some greens, a little bit darker. See, I'm just kind of tippy tapping. It's like building. We're building and building. That's that sagey kind of green, right? Put a little bit over here. Maybe even some brighter green. Building, building, building. And we're going to add some trees in a second, once this is just dry. I like a bright yellow green. Might go back in here and add just a nice wash of yellow. Oops. My yellow got all muted. So, yellow. So now it's really bright. And put some yellow out here. Just want it really bright. Kind of going over here. And even some down here. All right, we're going to wait till this dries. I'm going to come back. We're going to finish it with some simple trees and then throw in some blooms. All right, once that's done, remember we mixed up those two browns. I'll get them over here. We're just going to do some trees. So it can be tall, really tall, going up from here. Just put a little tree trunk and then just kind of, I'm going to water it down a little bit, adding in the tree, little teeny branches coming off that, and be a big one kind of here. And you can make another little tree next to it if you want to. And then I'm going to put some over to the left side. So just doing the tree trunk with some branches. And here we'll have more trees. We'll just put some trees in here. Kind of going up, adding in some branches. Some more trees back here. Get that color. And here we go, just adding the branches in. I'm going to use a sea sponge in a second. You might want to just put some tree trunks that are even just green back here by themselves. They don't even have to be brown. This is where our sea sponge comes in handy. So we have the sea sponge. We have all our little colors. Start off with the light color. So I'm going to mix the yellow back in here. Fairly loose. Consistency like cream a little bit. Maybe a little coffee cream. And we just take it. This is a small pitcher, so just be careful. Don't overdo it. Pushing down. You make our little tree leaves. Get the first initial one down. right? And here too. Just kind of tippy tapping and moving the brush. The sponge, and pushing down a little bit here. Now it's wet and damp in here, right? And we still have some aerated kind of leaves. You can go in and add some deeper color. So I'm mixing some Prussian blue with the yellow, more blue, and a little bit of brown. To get a little bit deeper. And now it's wet on wet. For some reason this is just not wanting to cooperate. Okay, here we go. The darker color doesn't seem to want to cooperate with the pushing down there. I might even just go in and grab some Prussian blue right by itself. See? Blue. And then I grab the yellow, thick. And that'll do the trick. Get that thick area. See how just tippy tapping? We have our trees. We have the light ones in the background. Tippy tap, a little bit of dark here. Not too much. Just a little bit. If you don't even have a sponge, you just take your like 8 or even your other brush, and then you can go like this. You can just kind of like go on its side and kind of move the paint around, leaving some white spaces. Just like that. Tippy taps with the brush. I just find the sponge much easier. Can even have some light colors back here. I'm gonna grab some more yellowish chartreusey color. Oop. Too much yellow, sorry, excuse me. It's stuck on my brush. It happens. Okay, there we go. Just tapping that yellow color around. And a little bit of the yellow color out here. And you can get a little bit darker at the bushes back here if you want to. Just tapping the color, giving it some more dimension. Don't fuss with it too much. There's a little pathway. You can start to add some more greens. And then the grasses can start to go over the pathway just by taking them 8 long round and kind of pushing up the paint like this. And even the darker tone paint of green, you can go in here. Again, make the grasses. Don't go too crazy with the dark color. Actually, adding some more blue. See how our white just kind of dissipated and it went kind of like that. Now you can go back in, add some deeper dark color values with the grasses. Don't go too crazy. Going back in here, and then we're gonna just add in some blooms. It could be yellow or white. So just take the yellow and just tippy tap. So you can have like yellow blooms all back here. See? A field of yellow. Even back here, little teeny ones way in the back. And then kind of make them a little bit bigger as you go towards the front. This little field. Put them in here. And then we grab our white gouache. Make sure you clean your brush good. I have a tendency not to do that, and then my gouache becomes pigmented. All right, so you can actually make real like daisies if you want in the front. just by taking the white gouache, or if you to put some masking fluid in the beginning, which I didn't talk about, just making some simple daisy flowers. We'll add the yellow center, just the 5 whatever petals, or you can just tap it like we did with the yellow. You can just tippy tap the little ones back here. So it's a field of daisies, bigger ones in the front. This one's kind of really big. But you get the idea. And then we'll add the yellow center. And then over here, same thing. We can just tippy tap. And add some white, actual daisies. Paint in some daisies. And the tippy taps. Just these little white flowers way in the back. Have them coming out here. And like I said, so the white part, you put them in. If you want real daisy, just add the yellow center. Real daisies, be really pretty. And that's the first card. The second one, we're going to get even more simpler. And you can go crazy with this. You can add some pinks. I mean, I have bright rose. You water that down. You can even put some pinks in here. By the way, if you add pink to your white gouache, you have a nice pale pink. So you can add some pinks in there. Got some purples. Simple like that. Have a cute little meadow. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. By the way, when you take off the tape, it's the most satisfying thing. Look how nice it looks with the border. And see, mine doesn't rip. I don't know. Some people say there's rips, but it doesn't rip. So I'm going to tape down the next one, and we're going to do a looser one on that one. So this one, now that we have the techniques down, we're going to go vertical and faster and a little more loose. So I'm just going to do, instead of doing a pathway, just like a hill that kind of comes here, right? Kind of on an angle. Maybe we have some background with some background mountains, whatever. And then the sky too. The sky can be similar color if you want to make them kind of similar. Go back and use some cobalt. I'm going to tilt this again, but we're going to go really fast and loose. So now we're just going to go in here, like we did before, on diagonal, mixing up some more cobalt. Just keeping it simple. I feel like the diagonal helps you give like an energy to the painting. Get a little bit darker up in here. Make it a little bit different. And there we go. Simple sky, right? If you want to add a little bit more dark pigment kind of going in here, go ahead. That's what I'm just going to do. Simple little sky. Get a little bit lighter. Taking off some paint by lifting it up. Lifting. All right, so the ground, I'm going to do bright white. We're going to use wet on dry. Bright white, excuse me. Bright colors. So we have the cadmium yellow deep. I'm going over to all those colors that I had over here, just mixing up all those greens together. Why not? Use your paints like this. Don't keep wiping everything away. Sometimes it's great to keep all that. I can add some peacock blue and get that bright color. We still keep our colors over here that are darker. So we get that Prussian blue, the yellow, a little burnt umber. Good to go. You want the colors close by because we're going to be playing around with them. All right, and then there's that green. I'm going to add some more peacock blue. We have like a bluish green here. Yeah. Now if this is damp or dry, I'm going to play around with adding in a light color like we did in the background. And you can even just add, again, the cobalt, like a bluish sky. So we'll do like a little blue-green kind of happening here. If it's still kind of damp, it's going to bleed a little bit. That's fine. Even get a lighter chartreusey green kind of going in here. right next to it. And now I'm going to take this color, soak it up all in my my big 12 brush. And going to hold it on its side. Look at that. And you can see already the dry brush happening. Right? I'm going to grab some yellow pigment, get even like more intense at this. Right up in here. That's too much for you? No problem. Just don't do it. You see how I'm holding it on that side? And you can see that it didn't hit this area. So we got that dry brush, that energy that we like. And then you're just grabbing your dark colors again. Mixing them up a little bit more here. Thicker paint. So in between the cream and milk. Just tapping in that color. A little bit thicker again. You can barely, almost like butter. Just getting that energy, right? It's kind of bleed a little bit. Still using number 12. Play around with some more greens. Now if you want to switch to the number 8, get some grasses like this. See, the energy is so different from the first one. You can get, I got some Paynes gray in here happening. Just really kind of funky kind of energy like that. Get a medium green, adding some more yellow. So the field, like it's really blowing in the wind. Put some out here. We're going to do some trees out here too, but we're just doing this now. A little kind of grass is kind of happening, even from the bottom. And we can still use the same technique with the credit card. Remember, we have to wait till it's damp. Let's see. It's somewhat damp because it's not as wet as this one. Just do a few of them. Don't do like a million of them. There we go. And also, while it's still damp, I know, time is running out. Get your white gouache. I'm going to water it down just a little bit so I can move the paint. I'm going to try and splatter a little bit to get those little white daisies. Look at that. If you want to cover your sky with a piece of paper, do that. I don't know if I have a piece of paper close by. I'm just going to play around with this anyway. See what happens. Get the little ones. Look at that. That's our field of daisies. So small and tiny. Okay, at this point, let it dry. Don't play around with it. Don't go crazy. Let her dry. She's dry. We're going to add some trees back here. I made that dark green, water it down. And here, we're just going to move this paint around. Take a little tree bush. Using the number 12. Like this, connecting. Got a tree. We can do some little trees down here. A wholly different feel from the first one. Right? Just little tree bushes. Can make this even darker. Tapping in some dark blackish brown color on the bottom. Those are little dark tree bushes. Take those same colors and you can add more of this sweeping grasses. Don't do a million of them. Put them next to the white ones you scraped. See? It really stands out more. Okay, just do a few. Like I said, you can go crazy making these little grasses. Then let's do some bright green ones. Kind of going way out. Woo! Okay, we'll let this dry and we'll come back and do our daisies again. All right, now that it's dry, I'm actually using the number 12 brush for the daisy this time because I think that number 8 was just too pointy. So now we can go back in and simple little daisy blooms. I like the splattered ones and I like to paint more of the realistic ones also. So 2 types of daisy fields. One's like a little more sporadic, kind of wild. like this one. And then you can also do the little tippy taps way back here. But have some like realistic ones in the front. So you have the white, and you go back and grab the yellow paint right out of the tube. Just put it inside the white, and you have your sweet little daisies. Isn't she cute? So then we just peel up the tape and reveal our masterpiece. And we have our two simple mini landscapes. Kind of a little different energy in both of them. This one's a little faster, a little slower, but still the great same effect. Wet on dry, all that fun stuff. Splattering, scraping, all these techniques in one. So I hope this was helpful if you're just starting out and you want to paint some loose landscapes. I think small is the way to go. Figuring out which composition, vertical, horizontal, which part is the sky. You want the sky, you don't have the sky. The sky could be darker than this, could be brighter than this. Don't have to have the blue. Think of all these things. You can have more pinks in here. Play with your watercolor. Have fun. It's not supposed to be serious. It's supposed to be fun. So thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Please hit the bell notification button to know my tutorial's up. And please subscribe. We have fun over here. And also check out my Patreon. Thank you so much. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.